Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all
Nerds!
International. With the hyphen.
The Murder Hobo Show presents the Savage Rifter Podcast.
Oh, where are we?
Oh my god, there's a robot!
What? Run away!
I don't know what's happening.
Oh, it's like we're falling through rips in the time-space continuum.
Look out, we're in the middle of water!
There's only one way through this. Are you with me?
Yeah.
We must fight.
The Savage Rifter Podcast.
Welcome to the Savage Rifter Show, episode 15. I am one of your hosts, Gary, a.k.a. the Murder Hobo, and I am here with none other than world-renowned and infamous riff superstar. You know how this goes, DJ Jazzy Diaz.
Y'all ready for this?
So the Savage Riffs G Plus community fame.
Game on, Gary. As usual, this podcast is by the fans and for the fans. Hopefully, Gary's hit the record button because we were talking about 5 minutes on the last podcast into dead air and we did not record it. So that's okay. We just started over and kept trucking through it. As usual, I am your host, Victor, the Savage Rifter Diaz, and welcome to the Savage Rifter.
You know, the sad part is that was probably the best 5 minutes of content we've ever produced.
15 episodes, Gary. That is tenacity right there. Like a bulldog. Don't know when to let go.
Yikes. This is a podcast all about Savage Worlds riffs. We break down Savage riffs piece by piece so Victor can teach me and you, the listener, how to play, enjoy, and understand riffs. What are we doing today there, Big Shooter? What's on the menu? All
right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know how this goes. The Tommorow Legion Players Guide is our subject, and we are up to page 64 for traits and attributes. We're going to be talking about super strength, strain, skills, language and literacy, all the load limits for strength, survival, hindrances, and of course, mine and your favorite, edges.
Mm-hmm. This is what kind of separates the wheat from the chaffs, the boys from the men, so to speak, or really just sort of separates Savage Worlds from a lot of the other kind of crappy RPGs that are out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of details in the edges and super strength and just what makes up riffs and, you know, the gonzo super high end throwing, you know, cars and boulders at each other and all the special abilities that you get. Riffs really turns the Savage World rule system inside out and twists it around into a pretzel and then uses it as a weapon against you. So I think we're going to find out how wicked this can get. It may take us more than an episode, but we're going to give it our best, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go.
All right. From the riffs coming up.
Hey there, Mr. Suit-wearing guy. Yes, that's me. Don't I know you from someplace before? Yeah, I do know you. What's new with you, man?
Well, I suppose I can tell you what's new.
From the Rifts.
So, what's new this week in the Rifts community, Victor?
I was reading through something that John Stewart put together. He has a fantasy conversion PDF with 4 races, including elves, the Hammerheart clan dwarves, the Ferlarin, and Tinker Gnomes. And there was another one detailing Lone Star races. So that's been pretty popular. I see a lot of people talking back and forth and having a pretty good discussion about that. Now, I haven't taken a moment to take a look at that. I apologize, John Stewart. I have been a little occupied with a few other things. Life has gotten in the way. But I do want to take a look at that fantasy conversion PDF because I want to see what you're doing and how you're doing. I have a feeling you have your finger on a really good idea. I just haven't had the time to take a look at it. Have you taken a look at it, Gary?
Nope. I just threw it in the show notes because these things interest me. I like it when people do conversions because it's just less work that I have to do. One of the reasons that I brought it up, well, I love playing fantasy and stuff like that, 35 years of D&D, but I wasn't sure what the Lone Star races were, and then I looked it up, and I'm assuming that that's Book 13, Palladium's Riffs World Book 13 Lone Star?
Yeah, that's correct. It's all the races from the Lone Star book.
No, and is that like this Lone Star Texas and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. The Lone Star State, that's what it's all about. I believe Lone Star is a Coalition States facility located in or around the ruins of Austin, Texas.
Nice.
Yeah, there's lots of fun experimental things coming out of that particular facility. I believe, and I could be wrong, and you Riffs fans out there, correct me if I am, I believe this is where a lot of the dog boys were either created or born or kind of genetically altered, and that's where they were pumping them out of, is out of the Lone Star base that's there.
This is why you get paid the big dollars, because in Riff's book 13, that's what it does say. As a laboratory experiments being performed by Lone Star, well, they seem bland. I'm trying to read what this says, but it's a little scrunched up here. Most of them are just variations of the dog boy character class from the original rulebook, genetically reconstructed dogs with near human intelligence who have humanoid form. I feel like I need to insert a ding, 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 and give you a prize of some kind. Because
you need to hit that button, get that button working.
We'll work on that.
It has a lot to do with the Wild West. Of course, it is most of Texas is what they're talking about. Mostly Western Texas, really. I know in the Riff's World book, there's like a whole slew of racial character classes. A lot of the stuff that you will not see in the races that we just went over in our previous episode. There's a whole slew of them. There's probably like 20-something of them in that particular book. I remember reading through it and it becoming one of my favorites because I live in the Southwest, but also there was a lot of new racial character classes, particularly talking about dog boys. And then those of you equipment nuts will go crazy about the dog boy armor, all the weapons that's in there. One of my favoriteest Coalition States power armor is the Deathwing Assault armor is in there. I think it also has hover cycles, vroom, vroom. Always a fun topic amongst all the adventurers. Just a bunch of stuff. It goes everything from the Pecos Empire, Lone Star. It talks about the Lone Star complex. Actually, this was one of the books that I used in order to rewrite the adventure that I played with the original group when we had first gotten the rules and the PDFs together with my first original group. And I think we played like 10 or 11 episodes. And it started in or around Lone Star. Actually, they started out in the Tommorow Legion Castle and they were rifted out into Texas and they were given a mission and they went into Lone Star and found that they were doing some weird experiments and found some extraterrestrial DB creatures in there and this big giant like Godzilla-like insect creature that they had unleashed accidentally upon a Southwest. So it was pretty fun. They had to go all the way into the canyons of Arizona and fly back to Texas and do a lot of fun adventuring in there. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. If you know how to take that, wealth of background material and adventure ideas that it is, it's a really good place to start. If you want to start in Texas, I absolutely love it. And I literally live next door.
Yeah. I like this one here. Fuzzy Goblin says, Saga of the Goblin Horde meets Riffs, go. Have you ever played Saga of the Goblin Horde?
I have not.
Okay.
Had the pleasure.
Well, you know what? The thing is it's not a slight on you. I know how busy you are with not only Riffs, running all of the other things, and ICRPG, but I have had the chance to play it. And I just want to tell you about one of the game mechanics that's inside it. So basically, you're playing a goblin, and you're like sort of like the higher up kind of goblin. Now, there's the goblin boss guy who's the guy that you're doing all the work for. He wants you to go do stuff, go smash some cities and stuff like that, take out some humans, do whatever. Awesome. There's these adventures. But here's the cool part about it. You actually get to have like 6 minions with you as well. So you have, basically, you're the lead goblin. And you have 6 minion goblins that you can send in to do stuff. So here's where it gets kind of cool. We were walking through a swamp. And we started sinking in the swamp, and you could expend a goblin. Basically, you step on his head, and he sinks into the swamp in order for you to not have to roll and run the risk of taking a fatigue. You can expend them.
That's awesome.
To do stuff, right? So could you imagine dropping that in Rifts? You've got like a goblin with some cybernetics, maybe like a miniature goblin glitter boy, or your 6 little Rifts, your 6 little goblins guys are all like Rifts characters and stuff.
That's awesome.
Oh,
that's
man.
awesome.
That
They
would
give
be
each one of
sweet.
them 1 wound, and here you go. Use it how you ever please.
Oh,
see how long they
fun.
last.
Yeah,
They'd last in my games. They'd probably last like 3 encounters, and that's about it. He'd
Yeah.
have them all dead by the end of that.
Yeah, it's a wicked mechanic, man. Having little minions that you can basically, it's like having sort of 6 hit points or 6 free wounds. You can,
exactly.
send them off
That's
to do
kind of
whatever
cool.
you
That's
want.
a neat mechanic. It's kind of like the funnel mechanic that they have in DCC.
Very cool. So we got a couple of requests to do a more extensive look at Psy Stalkers. Apparently, there's some backgrounds on this race, some pretty extensive stuff. What say you, Mister? Is there enough for a show there?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I had read through or actually had skipped through when I was reading the original Rifts Ultimate book was a lot of the Psy Stalker stuff, Psy Stalker races, the Psy Stalkers that are being used by the Coalition to hunt down creatures of magic, magic users, psionicis, all the bad, quote unquote, people of the world. Psy Stalkers are very unique. They take the energy of their victims, kind of like a vampire would, and they can siphon that energy from the blood and wounds and damage that they do and use it, to help them be stronger, use different powers, lots of other fun stuff. They're kind of like a pseudo vampire, so to speak, a PPE vampire. But there's a lot more to it than just that. There's wild Psy Stalkers. There's the Coalition Psy Stalkers that run dog boy packs that hunt down mages, and there's everything in between. And there's even, I think, some alien type Psy Stalkers. I'd have to go back and check out the books. But yeah, there's definitely a lot there that we could talk about, make it an entire episode. I think it would be a good talk.
Cool. The one thing that I'm not quite sure about here is if they sort of like, do they just drain psionics? They take out arcane too, don't they? Is it both? Or,
I don't remember. I want to say yes. They can absorb PPE energy and ISP energy.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, like, why they're, what's the point in making, especially in Rifts where you have ley lines, can't they just go, like, suck on a ley line? Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, they're more sadistic than that. They'd rather take it out of someone's neck instead of pull it out of the dew of the universe, so to speak.
Oh, what a bunch of jerks.
Yeah, you know what? And it's crazy because they're a character class. You can actually play a Psy Stalker, which is a little different, right? It's a little different of what's out there, but it's one of the funner classes, and I think it's one of the more in-depth and unique character classes that is totally Rifts. I'd love to do a show about it. I'd love to open up the conversations. Maybe we'll get something going on Discord, and we'll have some people punching out some questions. Maybe we can do some live Q&A for that show. I think it'd be great. We'll set something up, people. Stay tuned on that one.
Cool. What else we got here?
So let's see. I know Patrick Shadow Dad Greenlaw was talking about posting some home game recaps at savagerifts.com. Awesome. I need to read through some of those. And Dustin Smith is bringing it once again with anything that can happen Thursdays, ACHT as we call it. So those of you who don't know, Anything Can Happen Thursdays is a weekly posting that I had dubbed Sir Dustin Smith to be able to write out an adventure, an encounter, a monster, something unique that is unique to Rifts that they can write out on Thursdays every week. So they've been posting lots of stuff. Lots of fun stuff has happened. There's some pretty good storylines that I've seen come out of that, and I've actually borrowed a couple of them on there. So if you haven't taken the moment, take a look at Anything Can Happen Thursdays on the Google Plus page. It's been a lot of fun. It's a really neat idea.
Mm-hmm. This week's was, I think you find a team of peeps. And basically, they make mention of being with the Freedom Squadron, and then there's some other people that sort of portaled in with them, and they make a mention of Venom. So this week's Anything Can Happen Thursday is all about, or all in the vein of Freedom Squadron, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they were doing like a crossover adventure, right, between the two. I'm trying to look it up as we talk about it here. And I remember seeing something about it. Really, really awesome idea. Anytime that you can take any of the other worlds, Deadlands, Hell on Earth, and the 101 other places that there is to play in Savage Worlds, and you can cross them over. Freedom Squadron's a good one because you can bring a lot of those characters into the Rifts. I think it'd be really awesome to be able to adapt a lot of those storylines, and anytime that you can. Rifts is capable of doing all of that stuff. Everything from Robotech to, to the Wild West to Pirates, all the way down to the Freedom Squadron. Go Joe. I absolutely love that. I think it'd be great to play and see some of those written out a little bit more. I may make that note and start that up maybe after we get done with the character compendium. There's some good stuff out there. It's one of the greatest things I love about Rifts is the multitude of storylines, of creatures, of characters. You can never get too crazy. There's no such thing as too much. They invented the knob that goes to 11 when they started playing Rifts, and got to thank Kevin Sambita for that, man. That's a great idea. We've been going 20 plus strong years with that game, and it still continues to this day. Thousands and thousands of people playing it. Not even those that are online. There's lots of them that haven't even signed into the Google Plus page. I was talking to somebody last week about a living Savage Rifts campaign, and he wants to do it, nationwide, multiple stores, and lots of stuff going on. And I think it's really great because he says he has thousands of people on his Facebook page and lots of people communicating to him back and forth that this community is still alive. It's still really vibrant. So I'm looking forward to see what he puts together and what the rest of the community is going to do when the next set of books comes out. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool. This week's Anything Can Happen Thursday, the party comes across a pre-Catalyst war journalist. They claim to have been caught in a ray used by an evil scientist, some type of super weapon. Members of both sides of the conflict are here, wherever here is. The party will come into contact with two differing factions, one endorsing freedom and the other one in favor of venom. Like awesome Freedom Squadron stuff, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Destin, if you haven't already gotten onto the Freedom Squadron page, go check that out. I think you have, and you're probably double posting this on that world and this. So we're crossing worlds, we're crossing community pages in Google Plus. I love it. It's awesome stuff. That's what I love about this community. You guys come up with some great ideas. All right, so I guess that's going to be it for this week. What are we coming up next, Gary?
Well, as long as we're not crossing stingers, everything is good. This week's Nexus Points main topic, the stuff that we're talking about, it's going to be traits. Well, that's what we're going to start it off with. We're doing traits. That covers some abilities, which are, well, there looks like there's only two of them. We've got some skills, hindrances, edges, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to comparing these with the original ones and seeing sort of like the extra that you get out of them. So that's pretty sweet. So we're going to start off with the attribute section here. Now, it says that inside of Savage Rifts, anytime you raise a die type for an attribute above D12, it only counts as a single +1 instead. So in regular Savage Worlds, it counts as a +2?
That's correct. So for those of you that are new to the Savage World system, every time that you raise a trait, in other words, your strength, your vigor, and all those abilities that we have, they use die types. So they start at a D4, they go to D6, D8, D10, and D12. The D20 in this game system is not used. But when you cap out at the maximum die type of D12, Savage Rifts turns that knob up just a few more points, and it allows you to be able to advance your character or advance that ability beyond D12 by adding a +1 every time that you spend your experience level advancement on that particular ability. Normally, when you play Savage Worlds, it adds +2. So it goes +2, +4. Do you remember off the top of your head, Gary, what the cap is?
So in Savage Worlds, D12's the max. That's as high as you can go in any skill or attribute until you hit Legendary. And then at Legendary, you can take edges. Professional and Expert is what the edges are called. Being a professional in something is going to give you a +1, and being an expert is going to give you a +2 to whatever it is you're trying to do. So the maximum would be +2.
Yeah, they're turning it up, and it at least on the super strength list, when you're talking about strength, the cap is at D12 +8. So for those of you who are doing the math in your head, yes, you will score an automatic success with a raise without rolling the die when you have a D12 +8, because the minimum roll that you would roll is a 9, barring any penalties and any other things for range, vision, wound penalties or anything like that. That's pretty cool. Can you imagine a combat cyborg with D12 +8 strength and he decides to lift that Volkswagen and throw it at the helicopter? Only in Rifts. Well, let's get started right at it. I mean, we're talking about super strength here. And super strength, we're talking about robot vehicles, power armor, cyborgs, and all those other crazy enhanced people that have their strength raised beyond extraordinary levels. Here's an example. There's a chart over on page 65 in the corner, and it goes from strength D4 to strength D12 +8. So strength D4, you would have a load limit of 20 pounds and a maximum weight of 80 pounds. So the maximum that you could carry would be an 80-pound, 10-year-old. That would be about as much as you're able to carry with the D4 strength. When you start getting up into D12, your load limit would be 60 pounds, and you could max weight 240 pounds. So that's pretty significant. Then it starts jumping up into the 1,000 and then into the tons. For example, D12 +6 has a maximum weight of 10 tons. For those of you who don't know, tons is 2,000 pounds. You do the math, that is 20,000 pounds. You could carry 2 SUVs. You could bench them and drag them 20, 30 feet. That's pretty sick. Not just one, because, it's Rifts. One's not enough. 2, SUVs. Let's see, my truck weighs 7,500 pounds, so you could do 15,000 pounds and still sling a railgun on the side, just for fun.
You're bench pressing 2 Humvees with a lamppost, one on either side, kind of a thing. Like, that's freaking crazy.
That is crazy.
And that's before breakfast.
Yeah, seriously. So looking a little bit further into that, they start to talk about the example of a combat cyborg. So with a D12 plus 4 strength, your load limit is 1,000 pounds, which means you can carry half a ton on your back just, for fun, and drag it around with you everywhere that you go without having any penalties to your movement, to your strength, or anything like that. It even says a little bit further along in the rules that a character can throw anything under her load limit. So yeah, you could pick up a couple of fire hydrants and, the dog and still have room for more. And you could throw them with a range of 3, 6, and 12, short, medium, and long range.
Why would you throw the dog, Victor?
Hey, it's riffs. You never know.
I guess if you could throw it fast enough, you could do some serious damage. But
hey, it'll get messy, but it'll happen. I've seen worse. Characters with the brawny edge multiply their load limits and max weight by 1.6. Oh my goodness. So if you get the brawny edge and you have a D12 plus 4 strength, you will have a 1,600 pound load limit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
If you look at the heavy item table, so a parking meter weighs about 50 pounds. It says the damage is strength plus D10. So
swing away, buddy.
If your strength is D12 plus 8, you're rolling
a D12, a D10, and an 8. That means you've got a minimum roll of 10. You've got a maximum roll of 30. Oh,
you're rolling a D12, a D10
with a parking meter, dude.
Plus
with a
8.
Parking meter. Think about
with a parking meter.
Yeah. When you get into larger things like a lamppost, that's a strength plus D12 plus 2. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Man, the biggest thing on this list is a tank.
Oh yeah,
but you need to have where are we at? You need to have almost the maximum strength, which is D12 plus 7. So the maximum weight is the tank. The tank is 16 tons. D12 plus 7 will let you pick up 20 tons. You could throw that tank, and you would be doing D12.
You can only throw what's under your load limit. So technically, you would need D12 plus 8 to throw that tank, or at least a part of it, because the rule said just specifically it says a character can throw anything under her load limit with a range of 3, 6, 12. That's the top right hand column of page 64. So if you had a D12 plus 8 strength, you could throw 12.5 tons. So you could theoretically pick up that tank and chuck it.
Yeah, so hold on a second here. We got to back this bus up because now I'm a little confused. A character can throw anything under her load limit within a range of blah, 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 blah. If it is
the load limit
I
for
see.
D12 plus 8.
Yeah, but the load limit is
12.5 tons.
Yeah, the load limit is the first column. The maximum weight is different. You couldn't throw that.
You can't throw it, but you could pick it up and, or you could drag it, or you could roll it over or push it.
Yeah.
A 16-ton tank, you would need at least 12.7, a D12 plus 7 in order to do that. So, you could lift up a tank with a D12 plus 7 above your head and take a few steps.
Yeah.
That's as far, you couldn't chuck it. You would need a D12 plus 8 in order to throw that at least 3 squares.
So you would have to take maximum strength and the brawny edge, and then you could throw the tank.
Yeah, you'd have to max out. You'd need 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 advancement points.
Yeah, edge multiplies by 1.6. So it's 12.5 tons times 1.6. Well, the 0.6 is basically half. So that's going to put you up at 18 tons.
Yep.
So if you were D12 plus 8 and you took brawny, you could throw a tank. 3, 6, or 12.
I'm sorry. Anybody who spends that much attribute points on their strength should be able to throw a tank, rip a tree out the ground, and swing away with a lamppost. I'd allow it. I'd encourage it. I'd put up a lamppost in the middle of nowhere just so they could use it.
I mean, if you weren't doing that once a game, you'd almost, your strength would almost be wasted.
Yeah, a lot of people don't do it, but imagine a juicer. Hulk smash, and he picks up the tree trunk and swings away and takes out, a car, a plane, a few of the enemy, and, maybe a half a city block. Now you know why they can do that. It's easily getting up into the supers numbers. I mean, you're almost getting into a 4-color superheroes game at that point when you're starting to throw trees and statues and trucks and cars and armored personnel carriers and pushing, bullets and bombs out of the way. It gets kind of crazy.
Have you been watching Danger, Will Robinson? Have you been watching?
No, I have not. I have not. Everybody's been talking about it.
I'm going to save you a butt ton of trouble and time. You just go load your gun, go out in the backyard, shoot yourself in the foot, and just be done with it. It's the worst show ever. There's some cool stuff about it, but there's the robot guy. He pushes this rock out of the way because one of the ships, like, it's trying to. It's like when you take a camper that has a pullout and you park it, and you have to like let the pullouts come out. So that's what their spaceship has, these pullouts and stuff, but it bumps into a rock because where they landed it. So the robot goes out and he grabs onto it and he starts pushing it, but all you can see is little Will pushing the rock, even though you know the big robot's on the other side of it. Anyways, that's pretty cool because the rock is massive. I mean, it's as tall as the ship, basically. It's got to weigh who knows how many tons that rock has to weigh, and the robot's just out there pushing it. Like, yeah, it was pretty slick. Anyways, dumbass show.
Dumbass show, but you've got 13 hours into it, right?
Never mind, because I'm going to go off on a tangent, and then we'll just be talking about that stupid show forever.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, coming up next is Strain. We're going to try to cut that off before Gary goes off onto another tangent. You know how this goes. Pal. Bionic and cybernetic parts are a major part of the setting, and that is an understatement. So characters who have one or more such implants need to track his or her maximum strain to ensure she does not overtax her body or her mind. I believe a character's maximum strain is equal to the lower of her spirit. Yeah, lower of her spirit or her vigor die type. So if those of you characters who are going to want to take in some cybernetics, do a little planning when you make your character. Think about it for a little bit and spend an extra point to bring up that spirit die or bring up that vigor die if that's not one of your major attributes. Because the higher your spirit or the higher your vigor, whichever one's lower, that's where you're going to get more points to spend on cybernetics. So if you're planning on replacing those limbs, getting that hidden laser rifle in your thigh or replacing your arm into a cybernetic arm, that's where you want to put your points. So anytime you take on cyberware. I'm sorry, go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say it's the lowest of the two, right? So if you've got a spirit, say 8 and a vigor 6, which is probably impossible in Rifts, right, you would be forced to take the 6 as your strain.
That is correct.
Cool.
And every time you take on a piece of cybernetics, the cybernetics has a cost. So, you put on a cyber radio, that's going to be 1 point. You're going to put a hidden forearm laser, that's going to be 2 points. So now you're 3 points down with the cybernetics that you have. If you chose, your vigor to be D6, you're going to get 6 points. So you're going to be left with 3 more that you can take. Maybe you want that hidden jetpack, or you want to replace your legs with super, jump ability or whatever. You kind of need to be very careful because especially in Rifts and in Savage Rifts, even more so, they do not allow you to do like 60 different pieces of strain or 60 different pieces of cybernetics because of the strain. They kind of limit that a little bit. And in a way, I like it because there was a lot of characters that we would play in Rifts that would really get kind of crazy with, 16 pieces of cybernetics. And they're like, well, it's only a little chip. It just gives me some skills. And it's only a little piece that replaces my ear. And next thing you know, you got a totally overpowered character. But hey, it's Rifts. That's what it's about.
Anytime you go over your strain by 1 point or by 2 points, you take a level of fatigue.
1 point.
So it's per point then. So every point over
Correct.
Is a point of fatigue.
And as you know, there's only 2 levels of fatigue before you become downed in Savage Worlds. So at 2 points of fatigue, if you get wounded just once, you fail that vigor roll, or you don't have enough bennies to roll it, you're unconscious. It's because it's too much of a strain on your physical body, your nervous system, your brain, whatever it is that you're jumped up to. But for every point that you're over fatigue. So in this case, let's talk about the example that we were just talking about. If you had 6 points of strain, when you take your 7th point of strain, you automatically have a fatigue point, right? So every skill roll, attack roll is going to be at -1. Now at 8 points of strain, you're going to have 2 levels of fatigue. Now everything is going to be at -2, in addition to all the other fun stuff that you get to add on to all of the rolls that you have. And you can't take any more than 2. 2 is the maximum points of strain that you can take on, but it leaves you in a permanent state of exhaustion. And then, of course, 1 point beyond that, and well, you simply pass away. Too many implants. Not enough real person left.
I never really thought about that, but that's actually pretty funny because if you put them in a situation where they have, let's say they've decided to cyberware it up and they have the 2 points of strain, and you put them in a situation where they got to make like a vigor roll or whatever to not take exhaustion or strain or something like their fatigue, I should say, and they take fatigue, they become incapacitated.
Yeah. instantly. So if you've got someone who's permanently exhausted because of the amount of cyberware they have, and they have to take a 30-mile trek across the desert with no water, yeah, that's going to be a short trip.
Yeah, that's really actually kind of funny. I never really I don't know why that just didn't dawn on me before, but
yeah, it's even worse for mages because once you get all your full strain in cyberware, you lose your ability to cast magic. At least that's how it was in the Palladium version.
Nice. Next up is skills. So all the skills listed in Savage Worlds are available in Savage Rifts. So that's really kind of cool. This really brings into play bringing the core book, all of those things into Savage Rifts. And then they've expanded a few other ones with the following knowledge skills that have particular use and meaning. Well, Knowledge Arcana, I don't know, maybe Knowledge Arcana just means you know things in Rifts. Is that what it's getting at? Because there's
well,
Knowledge
sure, yeah,
Arcana
you know a little
one.
bit more about the creatures and the monsters and the DBs that come out of the rifts. You know what a ley line is. You would know what a rift is. You would know what a nexus point is. You would know how dangerous it would be if a 1 mile tall nexus point blew open a rift that size. You would know automatically if you knew some Knowledge Arcana. That would be kind of the basic stuffs and principles, skill and ability that you would have regarding your magical and mystical abilities. And also like how techno wizardry works, how psionicis can power techno wizard, and you kind of understand the underlying magical theory, so to speak.
Yeah,
that goes with that. But they go into a lot of the knowledge skills. I mean, they go into engineering, they go into medicine, they go into cybernetics and electronics, and a lot of these are not necessarily particular to Rifts, but it goes into some brief descriptions. A good one is knowledge history on page 65. It says it's a useful skill to have in a post-apocalyptic era of Savage Rifts because you need to know something of value or importance from the years that have gone by, including potentially lost modern-day ideas. For example, there may not be subways that exist in North America, maybe in Japan, maybe in Germany, but not in North America. They've either all collapsed or everyone's forgotten. The people who were alive during those times are they were either small children that didn't experience it or they're all dead. So no one knows what a subway is. So someone could take you to the catacombs and you could see, New York subway painted on the walls, and you would know what that means because you have some knowledge of the history that's happened in the past. Either you had studied it, someone had showed it to you and explained it to you, or maybe you actually lived through part of that, either because you came through a rift or you grew up in that age. You got to remember, it hasn't been that long. I think 101 PA, post-apocalypse, is the year and timeline, or what is it? Starts out in 106 or 105. I forget what the year that it is, but that means it's only been 100 plus years, maybe 140, 150 years since the Earth was actually live and thriving and, not the crazy trash can of a mess that it is now. So having some of that background and that knowledge history can be really important. There was an old character that I had played a long time ago that was a field scientist. And he had gone and done a lot of the research on the history of stuff. Unfortunately, all of his historical background came from comic books. So it was really fun tying those together and making that a part of history. But there's a lot of, real life stuff on Earth that was happening at the time that was being talked about in the comic book. So he gathered what he could through all of them. It was one of his quirks. He really valued his comic book collection, especially when he got stolen. But that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But knowledge skills are real important. You can use them for a lot of different things, especially if you're going to be making up a Mars character. There's a lot of fun skills that you can pick up and a lot of good in-game knowledge that maybe a lot of the party won't know regarding knowledge skills. Knowledge computers, that one is kind of a hit and miss kind of a skill. There aren't computers everywhere that you go. Electronics, science, politics, medicine. It goes through and describes all those in a pretty broad-based quick little couple of sentences, but it needs to be in there.
Mm-hmm. I get the feeling that they put it in there so that as a newcomer to Savage Rifts, you would have an idea as to how it pertains. Like if the medicine one, for example, says that this can be an important partner skill to healing, especially when dealing with a very complicated surgery such as detoxing juicers. So the reason that knowledge medicine, that's why I feel these are like that. Like they're here to let you know that you got to sort of think outside the original box. Knowledge medicine is going to do a little bit more than just help you, figure out how to make a poultice or something for that infected wound kind of a thing. This is, you got to look at knowledge inside of the Rifts terms, which would deal more like the crazy medicinal things that are going on with
Yeah, I
Crazy classes.
totally see that. I can, in the original game, there was a list of literally a litany, almost a book of all the different knowledge skills. There was probably 200 knowledge skills that you could have, everything from lockpicking to, structural engineering to power armor to flight to piloting. I mean, it just ran the gambit. There was a skill for everything when it came to knowledge. And the more the more you knew, the better off you were. But it's a whole nother system and a whole nother methodology. This at least summarizes some of that, so they have an idea of some of the knowledge skills to pick that are outside of the regular Savage Worlds rulebook.
Yep, I like that. I like knowledge in the idea of it, because you can bring that one simple skill into basically any setting, like knowledge detective or something like that. You know what I mean? If you're going to play like Deadlands Noir or something like that, maybe you've got knowledge of social media networks inside of ETU or something. Like it's so broad. It's useful across a broad range of things.
Yeah, this is a good example of the basics that you need in order to play Savage Rifts. It gives you a good basis to create your character off of. I really like it's short, it's sweet, but it's just enough detail to get you started.
Yeah, and really make you think in terms of Savage Rifts, which is pretty cool.
Well, the next section is just the same way, though. Languages and literacy. It's the same kind of thing where you don't need to know every language being spoken on the planet. We don't need a dictionary of all the languages. There's American English, there's Spanish, there's Dragonese, Elven, Chinese, Gobble, which is it's spoken by a lot of the barbaric races, or at least that's what it says here. There's no written component. They talk Japanese, Euro, Technocan, which is like a Techno-American Canadian combination. It's a lot of the language used in the technical journals and the shared coding projects and other related efforts. And then there's Fairy Speak, and that's about it. But there's a whole slew of languages and literacy that happens in the original game. It was the same way like knowledge, literally like language, and just like all D&D games, right? 37 languages. And me, I don't usually use, as a GM, I don't usually use language as a hindrance or an edge or really anything. I figure everyone can figure out a way to get along and talk to each other. It just makes the game a little bit faster, but there's a lot of other GMs that prefer that depth, right? That characterization of the language to be able it to be a barrier and for the characters to figure that out. Sometimes it can be a part of the game. I can go and make a whole adventure outside of, being able to speak Technocan, that written coding language, and how only certain people like operators or techno wizards will be able to talk to each other in it. So they're over here talking numbers and going back and forth about code, and everybody's like, what are they saying? I don't know, some gobbledygook about, some type of computer language. And you could totally make it like that, but it's just up to what you want to use it for. Literacy, on the other hand, though, literacy is important because a lot of people and a lot of younger people who've grown up in Rift's Earth do not know how to read. Magicians, scholars, and scientists, they know how to read, but a lot of the time they learned it on their own, or they learned it kind of in the back alleys kind of thing. Because a lot of the people of the Coalition states, they're not allowed to read. Nothing. There is no like advertisements on their TVs, or on the radio. It's all radio, and it's all the spoken word. The Coalition has learned to teach them not to read, so they can improve themselves and find out what DBs and magic is really all about. Because they figured, at least Karl Prosek, the Emperor, figured that if I can get an entire generation of people who can't read, no one will be able to teach anyone magic because they won't know what the arcane symbols will mean.
Yeah, why am I not surprised? That's really what I want to say, right? Freaking Coalition. Usually when I'm listening to you explain how things work, I turn my mic off. And then that way you don't have to listen to me cough, snort, sneeze, sniffle, burp, whatever it is I'm doing. So the added benefit is you don't have the problem of listening, or you didn't hear me laugh when you're like, I don't use languages, and because I'm like, oh man, you're like, I don't use languages in this way and this way and this way, and I was thinking, and I don't use them at all because I just like you
totally
said,
optional for me. It's like there's different. That's one of the greatest things I love about the role-playing community and just role-playing games in general. I can go to one table at a convention one day, one summer, and play D&D, old school dungeon crawling. Every torch, every minute is counted. Every rope, square inch, the number of times you've swung the sword, the quality of your armor, all of that stuff is accounted for and documented. And, this guy's carrying around a 3-inch binder with all the stuff that he's counted. And then I could play a game of, ICRPG a year later, and it's a GM who's totally making up off the cuff. And yeah, you want green power armor. Sure, it shoots lasers, ultimate damage. Roll whatever you want. Here comes the dragon. And it's just as much of a fun of a game as it was on the game I played a year ago. And it's not because of the system. It's not because of the story. It's because the people around the table are all doing the same thing, having a great time playing the game. And that's what it's all about. You play your game how you like to play it. And you and I have talked about this a little bit too. You play your games a little differently than I do. I play my games a little bit maybe more technical, maybe more a little open. And Frank plays it differently, and Hankerin plays it differently at his games, and everyone else does too. And that's what's really great about it. You play what you like at your table, and if you guys are having fun, then keep going with it. Keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with it. This is just, like the pirates like to call it, a set of guidelines.
I was expecting some kind of cool pirate joke that sort of rhymed with R or something like that, but nothing good came of that, Victor. I'm a little disappointed. Survival. Knowing how to survive on Rift's Earths goes far beyond finding food, water, and shelter. Yeah, because you don't know when you're going to get sniped from a city away by some glitter boy with a rocket that's going to shoot some crazy-ass mind-melting freaking gas on you. This game is...
I'm surprised they even put survival in here. Now, granted, it's only like 4 sentences in the bottom right-hand corner of page 66, right? Because survival, you could do years of survival training on Rifts and not learn how to do it. But this one's going over the basics. This is a survival skill and allows your character to identify more commonly encountered monsters and other threats found in the wilderness between communities. Game masters should apply penalties for rare creatures and bonuses for those commonly encountered in an area. So they're just kind of giving you an idea. If you have survival wilderness, survival forests, you should be able to pick out the difference between a bear and a DB mutant, giant rat that looks like a bear. You should be able to tell the difference and apply those penalties accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Hindrances, let's do it. Below are new hindrances for the world of Rifts, with the possibility of bionics and cybernetics eliminating the negative effects of some physical hindrances, like anemic, blind, hard of hearing, one leg, etc. And then it gives you a little bit of the game master may want to do some of this and some of that. And there's only 3 of them. But I love the last one, and I have an example of the last one that's very recent. So the first one is Last Call. It's a minor hindrance. You get tremors, hot skin, the strange glow just at the edge of your vision. I'm taking it this is like for a juicer or something like that, where if you don't do something, some stuff happens.
Moments before you reach for that last burn die on your last turn, that's what you start feeling. You start getting the shakes.
Only juicers may take this hindrance. So how does it work? She makes the most of her?
Yeah, so the burn die of the juicer increases from D10 to D12 whenever you take Last Call. Unfortunately, though, the D12 is also the die rolled at the beginning of each session to determine if she's going to die that session or spend another burn for a bit more time.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So let's go back and let's go review what we talked about for the juicer, because it has been a while since we went over the juicer. Page 24 in your handbook. You go over and take the burn, and it says, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Give me a second and we'll find this. So burning bright. For those willing to risk an even earlier death, burn can be spent for rather amazing purposes. Spending burn gives a juicer a D10 burn die to add to any trait or damage roll. This die can ace like any others, and if it's spent to reroll anything a burn die is spent on, the burn die is rerolled too. Now, this is all well and good, but at the beginning of every game, whenever the juicer starts...
Yep, you nailed it. I figured it out. I got it now. Yeah, so the gist is that you start with a D10 as your burn die, but you have 12 points of burn, so you can never die in the first 1 or 2 episodes. With this hindrance, you're rolling a D12 instead of a D10, so you have a greater chance to fail, and that burn can go down quicker because you're rolling the higher die.
At the beginning of every game, you have to roll equal to or greater than your juicer's current burn.
Yes, sir.
If you roll higher, you reduce your burn by 1 point.
Yes.
Right. So eventually you'll roll over that last one, regardless. When you get down to 2, that's going to be your second to last game. You'll have one more game left, and you'll have to figure out how to die.
Hence the hindrance.
Yeah.
I want to air high five because we figured it out, bro. Mania, minor, major.
Miracles happen.
The character has a serious and negative mental illness of some kind, such as the lack of empathy towards others. Ooh, that's kind of brutal, man. Significant bipolar tendencies or psychopathic compulsion to cause harm. Yikes.
Yeah, so either one, whichever one you take, minor or major, each one reduces your charisma by 2.
That is crazy, man. So if you take major, it's your charisma goes down by 4. You know what? Killing somebody's really going to make really affect your charisma, so to speak.
Well, if you become, if you have like a psychopathic compulsion to kill something, that might, or say you have a psychopathic compulsion to kill cockroaches, and one of the party's player characters is playing a DB cockroach race, that could definitely turn into a mania. But the crazies, I think, have to choose 2 manias, a minor and a major, or a minor or a major when their characters are made. So that could get interesting.
Yeah, that's going to turn into a lot more of a deal when you're playing a DB cockroach and this guy's got to kill cockroaches. That's going to turn into a brawl, a gunfight. The last one,
brother, knock them out.
Yeah, the last one is my favorite one. This is the coolest, and I've taken it as a hindrance, and I've used it as a hindrance. And remember that when you're playing Savage Worlds and you roll or use your hindrance, that's the time for you as a DM, GM to give the player a Benny. This is why I love Monologuer. Inside of 50 Fathoms, I'm pretty sure you can take Monologuer, but basically, some folks just can't help running their mouths, taunting people, lecturing, or making lengthy observations about their surroundings when they should be fighting for their lives.
I'm going to get a permanent marker and write in Gary right there.
So if you don't, it says anytime the character's action card is a club, you can make a smarts roll at -2, or you have to spend that round just rambling. I am going to kick your tinfoil arse across this grassy plains, you stinking varmint, kind of, you know what I mean? The Monologuer, which was really funny. If you've watched the last episode of the last season of The Walking Dead, there's this bit right at the end where the two of them are just monologuing with one another about Carl and it's like you got Negan and you got Rick and they're just monologuing, and then Rick gets up and he does a little bit more monologuing, and then he finally gets to attack him and slices his throat and stuff. Oh, poor, that's probably spoiler. I think spoilers got to go in first, but whatever. Anyways,
still pretty awesome. Still pretty awesome little hindrance right there.
It's cool, dude. It's so fun to just that's your turn. You just stand up and just start taunting people. It's super fun. Edges. We got some new edges for riffs. Core edges. So some of the new edges. I mean, we're gonna have some of the basic ones like arcane backgrounds is pretty normal for Savage Worlds. But in Savage Rifts, we have a couple of different ones. One of them is called Gadgeteer. A Gadgeteer is a techno wizard with this edge, and it's the techno wizard has it embedded into their iconic framework. So they start out with it, but it works slightly different. Go ahead and check out, and we've talked about techno wizards in the past. Go check out page 42 on how that summary is, and we'll go back to it here real quick and take a look at that. So the arcane background is called Weird Science, and of course, you begin with 3 powers, 15 PPE, and you get to be able to use techno wizard devices which have spells embedded in them. And that's a little different than the usual Gadgeteer that's in most Savage Worlds games. If you go take a look also at Noble could be a fun one. I got you. So the Gadgeteer basically lets anybody sort of be a techno wizard kind of a thing? Like
you don't have to have, the iconic framework to be able to use Gadgeteer.
You could just still be some nub that knows how to make a belt buckle shield kind of a thing. That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good edge.
Exactly. That's always fun if you have somebody like that, a gnome tinker that you want to bring in from another world. Mm-hmm. You can bring him in as just a regular Mars character and give him the edge of Gadgeteer, and they'll be able to use it somewhat the same like a techno wizard would.
Mm-hmm. The noble edge you were talking about, what's the deal with that?
Well, the noble edge is, people and nations of Savage Rift tend to be a little cynical when it comes to positions of power and respect. So in Rifts, there are no nobles. You can't use the noble edge because it doesn't exist. There's no nobility still left on the planet.
That's funny. They're like, nah.
King who? Yeah, King Arthur. Yeah, they'll just laugh at you.
That's cool.
The next one up is rich. Unless a hero is planning to remain in one location for a serious length of time, annual salary really isn't part of the equation for his health. He's managed to accumulate a bit of money, or more important, some extra gear, he begins with 5,000 credits and gets 2 rolls on either the body armor, close combat weapons, cybernetics, or the ranged combat weapons table. So this is a good way to get a lot of extra junk or stuff.
Yeah, right out of the get-go for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Check this out. It even says you can give up 2 rolls instead to own 1 vehicle of your choice. Oh, that could be fun.
Yeah, that's sweet. Filthy rich. This character's made
not enough.
That's right. This character's made some major scores beyond the current adventure. You get 20,000 credits and 3 additional rolls for a total of 5 on the above listed. How do you take these edges? There's no requirements for these things, so it doesn't matter.
That is correct. There are no requirements for those edges.
They're starter deals, man. You could be filthy rich right out of the get-go. See, this is what I mean. This is why Savage Worlds is like sort of a world apart, because you can literally create any character class that you want. Not even a character class. I shouldn't say that's almost like blasphemy saying classes, but you can take all these little edges and attachments and little nubs you can stick on your character to make them whatever you want them to be. No mercy. It says this edge is not used. Per the setting rules on page 121, anyone can spend a Benny to reroll damage at any time. Yes, they can. Part of Rift's rules.
Yes, they can. Yes, I know. All the Savage Worlds veterans are turning in their graves right now, or turning, over the tables in front of them going, what? You can spend a Benny whenever you want to reroll damage? Because in the Savage Worlds rules, you can't spend a Benny like that whenever you want.
The setting rule is gritty damage.
Correct.
That's the same thing. No mercy is gritty damage. Why do they have it under an edge? Oh, never mind. What am I thinking? It's an edge because you can take it. So you can it says this edge is not used. What?
No. You can't take no mercy. Yeah, you can't use that.
Okay, so see, this is sometimes where pegging kind of
like
throws
2 negatives.
Yeah, it's a double negative. They put it under the edge like you can take it as an edge, but then they just tell you no mercy isn't used. When all they needed to do was just say the entire setting for rifts just lets you reroll. Just apply gritty damage. They don't even need to write this in here. Yeah, craziness. Exactly. It's confusing. I thought you could take it as an edge and spend bennies to reroll damage, but no.
No. You can't take it as an edge. You can spend bennies to reroll damage anytime.
Buddy, we are figuring out all sorts of things tonight.
My head hurts.
Iconic edges. What are these? So these edges require a character to have a specific iconic framework or race in order to take them.
Right. The first one's a good example. Beyond the Limit is what it's called. Now, the requirements are, this iconic edges, they do have requirements. You have to be a veteran. You have to have the veteran rank, and you have to be either a combat cyborg or a Mars character or a Mars iconic framework, one of the two. There are those so obsessed with cybernetic upgrades that they sacrifice sanity for superiority. Having taken all the cybernetics that humanity should be able to bear, they somehow manage to shove even more onto their framework, and damn the consequences. So taking this edge grants them a +6 strain. So in addition to taking the lower of the 2 of your vigor and or the other ability, you'll get a bonus of +6 strain. The player must select one of the unstable psyche hindrances, see crazies, page 15, to go along with this. So yeah, you're kind of giving up a little bit of your mental capacity there to be able to take on a few extra hidden weapons, armor, force fields, things like that.
Yeah. What is this little box here? Edges by iconic career. So it says the following is a quick breakdown of which edges are available to each iconic career. Okay, so this is just sort of like the short list of what you can take when you're going to be who you're going to be.
So if you're going to build a crazy, it says crazy, and then it tells you gun nut, gymnastic mastery, off the handle, split the seconds, and sublime chaos. Those are the edges that are available to just the crazy. Cool. No one else can take them.
So as we delve into the book, now I'm confused again. Iconic edges are you've got to have veteran, combat, cyborg, or Mars, but then on the next page,
Beyond the Limit. Yeah.
Yeah. We just roll right into the edges still. It's almost like.
Well, we're still talking iconic edges. I mean, it's still edges. They're just a subclass. So the first few we went over, from Arcane Background to No Mercy, those are core edges. So those are one that are universal for everybody. Either they're used, they're not used, and it gives descriptions of how they are. Now it goes into iconic edges. And iconic edges are almost always used only by the iconic framework classes or races. For example, let's go on to the top of 68, and this will enlighten you a little bit. Burn Brighter. It is required that you are a novice, and you have to be a juicer, and you have to have a spirit of D6. Gotcha. So juicers are the only ones that are going to get Burn Brighter.
Mm-hmm.
And it states every drop of life is precious to a juicer. They never want to see it wasted. With this edge, anytime a burn die rolls a 1 or a 2, the player may re-roll it. She must accept the result.
That's sweet. You know, this is a prime example of why when I play, I make it a point to have my players know how to play their characters, because I don't need to know that stuff. I'm doing the story bit. You guys be responsible for it. And then we've got this trust thing going on that I like to tell them. Sure. It's sort of how I lead into all my games. It's like, I trust you to know your characters. If you guys are going to tell me that this is how your character's played, we're going to play it that way. And I'm not going to question it, and we're not going to look it up. Books down. Let's roll. Yeah. So, yeah, I got you. Iconic edges. You got to be a juicer. Burn for glory. This is like a step up. So now you got to be legendary.
Well, yeah, because juicers don't live long enough to be able to use this particular one. I mean, yeah. So you have to be legendary, right? So that's how many advancements? That's 9 advancements, 10 advancements? I don't know. It's pretty high up there. And you have to have the original edge that we were just talking about, burn brighter. So it says, for the rare juicer who lives long enough to become legendary, the possibilities are truly spectacular for what she can do with her remaining days. A juicer with this edge may spend a point of burn to double the result of any trait or damage roll. Oh.
Yeah. Legendary is way more than 9 advances. No. You've got 4 per. So in beginner or novice, you've got 4. I think it's one of those. Yeah. So there's 4 there. Then you've got 4 in seasoned, 4 more in veteran, and then
there's legendary.
So what are we talking? 12 advances.
12 advancements. And you have to pick up burn brighter and be a juicer and have your spirit a D6 or more. And then, because there's not enough dice being rolled at a Savage Rifts table, you get to double the results of any trait or damage roll. Okay, so let's go back to our example here and let's do this math real quick. I got a juicer with a D12 plus 8 strength that is using a tank as a weapon. Wow, I can't believe I just said that. So they're going to roll a D12 plus 8 and another D12 plus 8 for the tank. So 2D12 plus 16, and they're going to be able to double that result. Okay, so 2D12 plus 16 is 24 plus 16, that's 30, and I can double it. So you could technically hit a 60 and that's not including the exploding dice.
Yes, if you exploded, it would be like, off
60.
the charts.
That's how many trait rolls? I mean, that's how many wounds? Wow. Even if you have a Glitter Boy, right? Glitter Boy has what, 14 armor out of 60? That still leaves you 46.
Yeah.
That's still like 10 wounds, 12 wounds. Oh, wow.
That's a wicked killing blow.
Yeah.
Burn past the pain. Seasoned juicer, vigor plus 10. So this is just going to remove some penalties from wounds and stuff like that. Do you have to spend?
Yeah, so you can spend a burn. In other words,
spend a burn. To get rid of the negatives. Burn for tomorrow is another one. You got to be veteran. Have burn past the pain, and then it says when rolling on the death and defeat table, you may add as burn die to the D20 roll. I'm going to look that up while you read cybernetic awareness. Page
122 is the death and defeat table. It goes from the number 1 through 20. And the higher you roll on the table, the better you do. So, when a juicer or anyone gets killed in a Savage Rifts, you roll on the death and defeat table. And of course, 20 is in bold. It says, what happened? Somehow the hero's injuries seem only to be superficial. He has no actual wounds. He is, however, forever changed in some significant way. His hair turns white and he has no memory of the last year. He has prophetic dreams once in a while. He sees and talks to things that no one can see, etc. and so forth. This is something for the player and the GM to work out. So you could technically burn out, go out in a blaze of glory, explode in that multiple bag of plasma grenades that you had strapped to your back before you jumped down the maw of the dragon. And they find you in the crater, a few days later after the fire burns out, and you're looking around everybody going, what happened? And your hair's, streaked white, and you're still alive. Now that is wicked.
So those are the juicer ones. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 for the juicer. One sort of for almost every level, which is pretty sweet.
Nice. Yeah, nice. The next one coming up is cybernetic awareness. So the requirements for that are seasoned, cyber knight, notice, and D6. It says, as an action, the Cyber Knight can stretch out his senses to understand all of the tech weapons and defenses he's engaged with. The -2 to attacks against him with the technical weapons expands to -2 to all trait rolls against him where technology is involved. This includes notice checks and opposed rolls.
Yeah, that's nice. It's not bad for a season deal.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Improved is the next one. So instead of the -2, it jumps up to a -4.
-4, right.
Cyberkinetic Denial. Legendary improved cyberkinetic awareness. What does this one do?
Oh, so he can shut down tech devices. As an action, he can target a device or a vehicle within her spirit range. He makes a psionics roll to shut it down for 3 rounds or a full minute with the raise. Firearms, communicators are rolled with no penalty. Vehicle weapon systems probably impose a -2 penalty, like a suit of power armor or an entire vehicle. You could do that with a -4. Anything like a cyborg requires an opposed roll at -4 against the target's smarts. So yeah, you can pretty much walk up as a Cyber Knight, get within your spirit's range of it, and say good night, power armor, and the glitter boy will just power down.
I'd be so pissed if I was a glitter boy and that happened to me.
Force eject the pilot out of the power armor when it powers down, and all you had to do was just look at it funny and just kind of watch it go. Boo.
Man, that is freaking top notch, dude. That's awesome. Yeah. Like, I would be so choked if I was like this badass glitter boy, legendary level glitter boy, and this guy just walks up, and there goes your poutine, man. Your poutine's getting cold in the back. This is bullshit. It's BS, man.
Awesome. Yeah, now that is a legendary requirement, though. So, like we were saying earlier, you had 12 advancements that you're going to have to do.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Still, worth it. Well worth it, I think.
Flame Blast is the next one. Seasoned Burster. For a single ISP, the Burster's Flame Bolt affects a medium burst template. So it's going... so it's just it's increasing in size. So you're doing the same damage, but yeah. So Flame Blast just lets you basically go from doing a straight like one-on attack. When it hits, it just explodes into a burst template. I'm assuming that's what the deal is for this, then, right?
Wow. Yeah, you expand the radius to a large burst template for 2 ISP. That is crazy good. You're putting a pie plate on the board. That's awesome.
Yeah, so you're blasting.
It goes on to say, unless otherwise stated, enhancements from other edges, such as improved flame bolt, apply to this use of this edge as well. Oh, wow. So let's just add a little plasma to that and, make it a little hotter. That's pretty cool, though.
Oh, man, that's sweet. I like the name of this one.
This is a good one. Look, check this out. Freshly juiced.
Yeah.
Requirements. Novice and juicer. So this is one that you get from the beginning. For some juicers, the surgical operations are fresh in their memory as the chemical cocktails flowing through their veins. Last call is a long way off for this juicer. She adds +2 to her burn score. This must be taken at character creation, and freshly juiced characters cannot also take the last call hindrance. So if you take this one, you can't take last call, but you get to add 2 to your burn score. So you could have theoretically a 14 burn score.
Yeah, very cool. Gun Nuts, the next one, just gives you a basic,
everybody's favorite.
Yeah, +2 bonus on your shooting attacks. It doesn't look like there's any other requirements or anything like that. It says a crazy with this edge can use shooting skill as effectively as his fighting, while in the losing it state, including a +2 shooting bonus on his attacks, though not to damage, just to the attack roll. That's very cool. So this is for the crazy then. For many crazies, the gun is a tool of unrestrained violence and a key partner in the ballet of rage that overcomes them. So what happens to them when they go into losing it? This will give them a bonus, but in losing it, they'll take a negative? I gotta go back.
They get more bonuses when they lose it. When they go crazy, they lose it. They go like into psychopathic rage sometimes, and they go on a killing spree. They get all kinds of bonuses and all kinds of penalties that go with it too, because of their mental state. But it looks like a crazy with this edge uses his shooting skill as effectively as his fighting while in his losing it state. So he'll get additional shooting bonuses to his shooting attacks as well as his fighting skills when you have gun nut. So they can fight with a weapon like a sword just as good as they can with a pistol if they have the gun nut. I don't believe that when they are losing it, they don't have the same bonuses. They can't shoot very well, but they can fight like a madman.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's too cool. Gymnastic.
Yeah, mastery. I mean, there's a litany of lists to this, dude. I mean, we could go on to this forever. They have, minor improved flame bolt, improved fire mastery for those of you burners out there that love to light things on fire. Ley line observation spheres, psi shields, burn faster, split the seconds. This is one we have to talk about. Split the seconds. Juicers and crazies often find themselves living between the ticks of a clock. This edge grants an extra action to the character each round. There is no multi-action penalty for this action, and it can be a repeat action, such as firing a gun or swinging a sword again. It cannot, however, be used for movement, such as running. So if you've got split the seconds, say you're a crazy and you've got split the seconds, and you have 2 pistols, one in each hand, you could take a multi-action fire penalty to fire both pistols and fire the pistol one more time as your free multi-action penalty.
That's crazy, dude. I love those. I love those. So you get an extra attack with no multi-action penalty. That's wicked. Is there any other good ones? Burn faster. That's just going to give you, what does that do?
You can spend a burn to get an immediate second action. It's like the quickness power. It lets you just go again, pretty much, which is pretty good. I mean, as a juicer, you want to be able to do that as often as you can, but you got to be careful on how and where you spend your burn, because the faster you burn through it, literally you'll burn up. Yeah.
So the upgrade edge that's in here is the same as taking arcane knowledge, whatever spell it is. Like, you know how that, so when you're taking a spell as an advancement, you actually have to like sort of write it down. This is what upgrade is for cybernetics, right? You gotta.
Yeah, exactly. It's the cybernetic version of that.
Background edges. We got a lot to cover, man. We've pumped out an hour and 10 minutes already. I'm sure you're starving. So background edges, the only one that's in here is upgradable. So you can take this. The hero can handle a lot more cybernetic invasion than most. He increases his maximum strain by +6. How does this one work? What's the deal with that? You increase your maximum strain by +6 so you can get an extra 6 points of strain with upgradable?
Correct. So yeah, if you have like a D6 in your vigor and that's your lowest one, you're going to get 6 points of strain. But if you take upgradable, well, now you're going to have a maximum strain of 12. No. Twice as much junk.
I just want to strap stuff to myself now.
Well, you don't need to. Now you can implant them in you, and your chest will open up and that mini missile launcher will just fire off right from your chest. That's Sweet. The kind of stuff you can put in cybernetics.
Combat edges. Battle Hardened gives you +2 to soak rolls. Charge. This is probably just like any other one. You're going to be able to get extra pace out of your deal. You can ignore multi-action penalty for running when making a fighting attack at the end of your movement, which is pretty sweet. Overrun is like you need charge, so you can do charge plus more combat sense. You have perception and agility to handle multiple foes.
Yeah, this so they can't use the ganging up on you. This is a good one.
Because, I like that.
Yeah, whenever the GM gets mad at you, he decides to throw 13 different coalition soldiers at you in hand-to-hand combat, and all of a sudden you're outnumbered, and he uses the ganging up rules against you. Well, if you have combat sense, opponents have all of they only get half of the gang up bonuses against you, rounding down. And then you have improved combat senses, which means you get no gang up bonuses against that warrior. GMs hate it when you throw that in their face.
Yeah, Dirty Fighter gives you +2 to your tricks and maneuvers, which is pretty sweet.
And Tricky Fighter gives you no multi-action penalties when using a trick in the same round as a fighting attack.
Excellent. There's a lot of that, taking the multi-action penalty out with these things, right? Power edges. Cyber Psychic Alignment. What mechanical benefit do you get from doing this?
Having a single strain's worth of cybernetics means you get no impact on rolling for power use, while having 3 points of strain value embedded only applies a -2. So when you have cybernetics and you use powers, you get a certain penalty when you make your spellcasting roll. When you have cyber psychic alignment, you can have up to 3 points of strain and only get a penalty of -2, which I believe you get a penalty of -2 for every point of strain when you make a spellcasting roll. I could be wrong on that one, but I believe it's pretty severe. This one helps because you can get half your body in cybernetics and take this edge, and you won't have such a bad penalty whenever you're trying to be successful to create the spells that you make. And then, of course, improve cyber psychic alignment. You ignore 2 levels of strain penalties when using powers.
That's sweet. Those are super handy if you sort of want to like cross-play your character a little bit, which is kind of nice.
Oh yeah, I had an ex coalition soldier that his magic awakened inside of him, and in a big firefight, his magic came out, but in a big explosion fighting the big bad guy, so to speak, he lost his legs, and he was given the option to have cybernetics replaced. and they would show him how to use his powers and have, like just his legs replaced with cybernetics. Ultimately, he decided not to. He created a techno wizard belt to allow him to float around and be able to move like normal people. But that's a whole nother story. But this is a good option for that in case you lose a hand, an arm, a limb, a leg, or something, and you still want to be able to cast your powers.
Yeah, energy control does. Psionic Master has greater control over a specific form of non-living matter. So basically it allows you to control or manipulate water, earth, metal, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. You get to use your telekinesis power to be able to, do all the different damages. I think it says all effects occur with a medium burst template and require the use of the telekinesis power. When you take this edge, a player selects an energy or form of matter to control. So say water, for example. And he can take this edge multiple times and choose a new type each time. So you can do water-based damage to that medium burst template anywhere within the environmental effects, or you inflict a certain amount of mega damage over the area, or you can dampen energy or kinetic energy of matter. There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with that one. That one's a little more complex, but it's a lot of fun once you figure it out, once you make your choices.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. I like that. You can, control different stuff. The Cyblade goes with the Cyber Knight already, right? So this is like if you're not a Cyber Knight, you can take this. Yeah,
exactly. So if you want to be kind of like a Jedi kind of thing, you can take a Cyblade with your Leyline Walker based character class, and this could be one of your extra edges that you can take. I've seen a lot of people play it that way too. They go into the whole, I want to play a Star Wars Jedi Knight in Rifts. I'm like, okay, make up a Leyline Walker and give him the Cyblade edge, or a crazy, or come up with one of the, what's the Psionic Masters ones called? I'm having a brain fart here.
You'll figure it out. I'll just hang out and look at you through Skype while you look it up.
The Mind Melter. Yeah, the Mind Melter gets to use a lot of those powers too. So it's always fun to be able to have that close encounter type of weapon, because that's the least person that you expect it from. The guy lifting up the boulders and the tanks and throwing them around with his telekinesis power, and then he draws out a laser sword, and you're like, oh wow, you're in trouble then.
Yeah, the exceptional rapid recharge is basically you get your PPE or your ISP back at a higher rate. That's pretty straightforward. Sixth Sense. Psionic can develop extraordinary extrasensory perception and awareness of potential danger. So that's kind of sweet. You wanted to be a psionicist and then have some kind of sweet auditory something or other. That's where it gets. It gives you the danger sense bonus, which allows you to get a -2 penalty to your notice check for danger sense. Character with
but when you get a raise with the Sixth Sense, you don't get you can take a quick immediate action. So you kind of see it coming, so to speak. You get that Sixth Sense feeling. It allows you to do something, usually just enough time to put up your force field or duck.
Yep, it's like Spidey senses, right? That's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Telemechanics. So this is like if you're like a psionic repairman.
So imagine if you had telepathy with machines. That's what telemechanics does. You can talk to the machine and find out what it does, all of its switches, all of its lasers, all of its abilities. Can it move? Can it walk? Can it talk? Can it connect to the internet? Everything that you want it to be able to do. It's like putting your hand on your PC and it tells you everything that you want to know that's in its hard drive that it's capable of.
I'm glad you said PC.
I meant personal computer.
Where you put your hand, because I thought you were going to say P something else, but never mind. Hey.
So, ladies and gentlemen, going through all the professional edges. I'm just kidding, Gary, giving you a hard time. There's a whole bunch here. I mean,
you're getting excited. Telemechanics. Did you ever watch Heroes? There was a kid that could do that. He could walk up. I want that. Hey, ATM, turn off your camera. Give me all your money. Right? Yeah. That would be sweet.
Security door, give me the password to the safe, and what's the number to punch in on the door on the outside. And you would just punch it in. It would tell you.
Yeah, I would be the guy that would be like, hey, show me all the dirty pictures this guy had of his wife stored in his computer in that secret file location. Anyways.
I could just see the look on your face right now is the typical face that you would have, right?
Professional Edges is next. Combat Ace. Yeah. This is just piloting from standard whatchamacallits, except you can do stuff and you ignore some multi-action penalties.
It's just like the regular Savage Worlds one, only you ignore multi-action penalties when you're shooting and driving at the same time, for example.
Nice. That's cool. Major Psionic. Is there not already a psionicist in this? What is this one doing for you?
This one's pretty much the same thing as the Mind Melter one. You're a major psionic, you get the abilities to be able to do it. This allows other characters, so like say you pick a Mars character that is a major psionic, just happens to be a hidden power. Or maybe you develop the character and after 4 or 5 advancements, you decide, oh, I need psionic powers because that would be cool. You can pick up the edge as long as you meet the seasoned arcane background psionics, smart D6, spirit D8, and psionics D8 requirements. It's pretty steep. It's pretty steep to be able to get that. But major psionic leads you to master psionic, and we all know what that means. Mind melter time. Those are the mega power versions of all the regular powers.
Yeah, you're just going to get a little bit extra out of being the master as you are.
Oh, a lot extra in my opinion. Yeah, that's a pretty good jump to be able to take mastery. Mastery in any kind of magic is great because you get to take the mega power option, so you get to start doing mega damage. Powers last longer.
The Master of Magic does the same sort of thing, I guess, for just the magic then, right? So
correct, for the arcane backgrounds, right? Yeah, and there's pretty steep requirements for that one too. Smarts D8, arcane skill D8, and knowledge arcana D6. And you have to have at least arcane background of anything except psionics. Any arcane background, you can take Master of Magic. And what that does, it opens up for you to gain all the mega powers. And if those of you who are listening, we haven't gone through spells yet or gone through any of the magic stuff, but if you don't know, there's the set of powers that are in the Savage Worlds rulebook, and then there's a set of mega powers, which are the beefed up super versions of the regular powers in the book. And there are 2 different sets of magic that can be used only by certain masters of magic, and this is the edge that you need to be able to take it.
Nice. Power Armor Jock. Obviously, this just lets you hop into power armor. You can fly the stuff around and you don't take any penalties, or you avoid the -2 penalty to agility and all skills while wearing power armor.
In other words, you know what the don't press this button is. So it teaches you not to use it. And if anybody can jump into power armor and use it, but if you don't have this particular edge, you're going to get a big penalty on all your agility and all your skill rolls to hit, all your anything that you try to do, any attribute test that you try to do while you're wearing power armor. It doesn't seem like much, but these start to stack up really quick.
There's the difference between power armor and robot armor.
That is correct.
The kaiju
that is correct.
Kind of a deal?
Robot armor can be anything larger than, I would say, larger than 10 feet. Most power armor will put you at about 9 to 10 feet tall, more or less. And it does encapsulate your limbs. So your legs go into the legs, even partially. Most of your body is in the body of the power armor, and your hands will go into at least the forearm parts of most power armored robots like the Glitter Boy. That's probably the biggest. And believe it or not, the Glitter Boy is power armor. It is not robot armor. It is just a really big, heavy duty, high end power armor. But robot armors are more like, a lot bigger, like Transformers, Robotech robots, the big transformable jets and whatnot. The Battletech mechs, those are considered robots. A lot of that stuff, you would sit in a cockpit or you would sit in a small room with a couple of people piloting the robot, because sometimes you can have more than one person piloting. Say you can have a gunner and a pilot, or 2 pilots and a gunner in a small cockpit in a robot.
Nice. Okay, we're wrapping it up with 2 social edges. I know a guy.
I have an awesome name. I have that edge.
Yeah, what an awesome name for whatchamacallit. I have that too, and it's you. I know a guy. I know a Riffs guy.
So the requirements for that one are novice, so you can take it when you start out. You do need a persuasion D6. You got to have a little bit of that suave talk and walk. You do need streetwise, which means you need to know somebody. And you need to be charismatic, because that's always how you get to know a guy. It says some people seem to know someone everywhere that they go. The contact may not be the most amazingly helpful person. They may even hate the hero for the past slight or money owed. But the person may be well placed in an organization, or just as easily homeless, and only know a few possible helpful rumors. So it's just somebody who knows somebody, and pretty much anywhere that you could go, you could use this edge, and you could pick up everything from a contact to a job to repair a vehicle to free house and home to a nice hot meal. Sometimes those things are important in Rifts. It does say specifically, though, once per session, the player can invoke this edge to effectively have the connections edge with any person or group. Use the rules for connections to determine if the contact can be reached, and blah, 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 so on and so forth, once per session. So that's kind of a cool skill that you're able to use. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, your character's going to know a guy, and he might even be connected to the mob or to someone else.
Yeah, the last one's my favorite, Scrounger. So some people are just very skilled at knowing how to find what they need in an urban setting. They know where to look, who to talk to, and how to get what their group needs. So you can make a streetwise check once per session in any city or large town. So you can get the following. So you'll gain a 1d6 plus 2. So you can get some ammo. You can get rocket reloads, I guess, or whatever for mega damage weapons such as boom guns, mini rails, and stuff. You can get food, fully restock one trauma kit, get some first aid kit, obtain a non-secured cred card with credits on it so you can find some money, and find some rare, not necessarily valuable and needed item, entertainment chips and stuff like that. I really wish they would have done this more along the lines of... do you ever play Auto Duel for the Commodore 64 way back in the day?
Oh, yeah. Love that game.
Once you kill
Reminds
an
me of
enemy...
Car Wars.
That's right, yeah. Once you take out one of the other vehicles, you could pop out of your car and you could go over and you would have a skill very similar to Scrounger where you could start taking stuff out, and depending on how good your skill was to jack the car, you would just get better stuff that was worth more. I would have liked to have seen them...
I don't know how many people I would kill trying to... I'd see them, try to get off the car, go rip the minigun off the car, and I would just drive by and blow them away because they get greedy, right? You want to take that missile launcher. Oh, I need that oil launcher off that car, and they'll try to get off and go get it, and you end up getting run over or something crazy.
It would have been cool if they would have done something like that. Or my favorite setting, 50 Fathoms. 50 Fathoms has one called Treasure Hound. And one of the best things, or my favorite things that I love about Savage Worlds, when you're playing, like, say, fantasy, for example, if you take out a pack of goblins, let's say there's 5 in a pack. If there's a minimum 5 goblins in a pack, you're going to get, say, basic loot. And then you can roll on the basic loot table. Let's say you take out 5 ogres. They're going to have moderate loot. Do you know what I mean? And then if you take out cavalrymen, they're going to have really good loot. And then finally you'll have, say you take out a dragon. The dragon will have like treasure hoard. So there's stages of the loot that you can go through. Scrounger would have been cool if they would have done it like that, where it gives you an added bonus to roll on a loot table that gives you better and better stuff. Treasure Hound gives you a bonus 10% to your rolls. So
and the higher you roll on the table, the better the stuff.
Right. So magic items, instead of having your normal 1% with Treasure Hound, you now have 11%. That's a big freaking difference, man, which is pretty sweet.
Especially if the table's 1 through 100, because now you're at 10%. You're in 10 points higher than into the better equipment, better stuff.
Yeah, that would have been a cool way to go. Maybe you take out some whatever, and you use that loot table and stuff like that. But anyways,
write it up, Gary. Put it on the page, man. That's a great idea.
I digress. This brings us to the end of traits, abilities, edges, hindrances, skills, stuff, things. We did it.
Yeah, that's a tough one, folks. If you guys are reading through the book as we are, you can see that we went through quite a bit there, quite a stuff that we didn't read. Be real careful on what you choose. There's a lot of synergies in that, and there's a lot of requirements in those edges. So take your time, do the math. It really makes a big difference at the table. Gary and I as GM will appreciate it because it makes it so much faster, because there's a lot of dice, and this game is fast, furious, and fun for sure.
Yep. Gaming pro tip. When you show up at the guy's table, make sure that you write down what your edges do. Just don't write down your edge. Write down mechanically what your edge does. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here.
Whoa! Bloody hell! Oh man, I love this guy. Do we have to go yet?
Yes?
Oh, please.
Of course we do. We've got work to do.
Please, can we stay just a little bit longer?
Stop it, Jeffrey. Right, come on back through the rift there.
Fine.
Teddy here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can reach us at the Murder Hobo Show at gmail.com, or get us on Twitter if you can keep it under 140 characters at Murder Hobo Show, or of course over on the Google Plus page, Murder Hobo Show, under the Nerds International banner. You can reach out to myself directly at the Google Savage Rifts page, where the community is always for the gamers and by the gamers.
Coolness.
That's it.
Yeah, be sure to swing by the Murder Hobo Show on Podbean and check out the show notes. Usually that's where I put all of the stuff to the cool links for the creative people and places and things and stuffs and thises and that's. That's where you'll find it. What else, Victor?
You know what, Gary? I noticed that you've been posting the Murder Hobo Show for the Savage Rifter on YouTube. That's somewhere new that we hadn't done in the past, right?
Yeah.
I just noticed today that you've been posting like all the old episodes too are on there.
It auto does it through Podbean. So yeah, YouTube is another place you can go check out the Murder Hobo Show on YouTube. I post stupid videos, dumb things, stuff that's on my mind. A lot of tabletop simulator stuff because it's quickly becoming my favorite sort of VTT.
Oh yeah.
No fuss, no muss. Super easy to use. You can drop down maps just as easy as you can in anything. You and your buddies show up. It's $10. You got storage out the arse. The thing is fantastic on so many levels.
And it's so cheap. I mean, that would easily been a $50 piece of software. I would have paid the $50, but I think other people have picked it up. Normally it's $19.99, right? I picked it up on a December or a Christmas sale for like $10. It was awesome. I bought like licenses for everybody I knew because it was a great cheap way to be able to play Tabletop Simulator with all my friends. But yeah, if you guys haven't caught all the other videos that Gary's put out, he's put out stuff for Tabletop Simulator. Of course, the podcast for the Savage Drifter. But don't forget, we also have our other podcast. So please catch us there, Threats, Treats, and Timers. We talk about ICRPG Core 2.0. Is that due any day now? I have officially sworn off of Google Plus ICRPG page until IC 2.0. Because damn it, I really want that rule set. Hanker Farnell says, the digital PDF is complete. He's just finished compiling up all the physical copy for release. He's shown us a couple of pictures of them stacked up. So we're all literally chomping at the bit, getting super excited and getting ready to change the world with ICRPG. So if it piques your interest, check us out at Threats, Treats, and Timers. I'm sure we'll get Hankering back on the show to talk about 2.0 and all the changes and additions and all the fun stuff once we get the book in everybody's hands.
I'd like to get him back in the show just to pick his brain on the process of putting it all together.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
an hour
for sure.
The
process must have been like having a baby. I mean, it's just he's been working at it nonstop for months now.
Yeah, it's insane. All right, well, tune in next time. We're going to have another action-packed show. We'll be tackling more on the characters section of the Player's Guide. There's a lot of material to go over in this amazing universal setting. Stay tuned for whatever it is we're doing next time. Next time is gear, by the way, come to think of it. We'll talk about some of that stuff. Sweet. Peace out. Later, dude.
Game on.
The Murder Hobo Show is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and for educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Murder Hobo Show, copyright 2017, all rights reserved.